So today we are talking about curriculum planning. And curriculum planning is really important. And as we're starting to think about like back to school things, it comes up. And I know that people think about like decor and lists and all of this sort of stuff. Curriculum planning is actually the thing that's going to make your life so much easier during the course of the school year. And if you're sort of new at curriculum planning, or if you've been trying to revamp, you might have seen like people talking about like different things. And the downfall of being a music ed major is that they don't talk about curriculum planning the same way that music teachers talk about curriculum planning. Like the ed courses, like they'll be talking about some things, but then music teachers use other words and you're like, what is that thing? So I wanted to kind of demystify a few of these things today so that you have a better idea of like what documents are really the ones that like you want to focus on. So scope and sequence is kind of that first big one that you hear, and this one you will have heard before, I'm sure. And this is really like everything that you want the students to know when they are done with you. The difference for us is that we're planning for longer time periods. We're not just planning for, one school year. We are planning for like maybe 6 school years. And districts will put together scope and sequences like for multiple grade levels in different courses and things. But really, like as a teacher, a classroom teacher, they're only responsible for a short part of that sequence. You, as a music teacher, are responsible for a lot more of it. In fact, a really large portion of it, because you have students for several years. So scope and sequence is really like everything that you want, and then what order are you going to teach it in? So you're not going to teach 16th notes before you teach steady beat, right? So that's your scope. What are they learning? And sequence, what order? Next is the curriculum map. Now, the curriculum map is the thing that you take and I like Google Sheets. We know I like Google Sheets. So I use Google Sheets for this, and I put, prepare, present, practice, and I use it for rhythm and for solfege, and then I have other things as well on my curriculum map. But then I lay out a column for each month, September, October, yada, yada. The map, what I use is I take my scope and sequence and I say, okay, this is the topics that I'm using and I'm going to teach second grade for example. And I'll say, okay, solfege wise during second grade, I want to teach do and I want to teach re. So I'll plot where I want to, present those to my students on my map. And then on the afterwards side, I put in the practice, and then on the previous side, I put on, the months where I'm preparing those concepts. And then I'll do the same for rhythm, and I make sure that it's balanced so that I'm not just like solfege heavy for like 4 months in a row, but there's some balance between rhythm and solfege and everything else that I might be putting into my curriculum map, like folk dances, or if there's a special topic in a certain grade where I'm putting in, even like for recorder, I'll say, okay, in, November, I want to make sure that the students are working on these particular solfege concepts on their recorder. So however you do those things, you put them in your map. And the idea of your curriculum map is it is the thing that, okay, I'm sitting down to make my lesson plans and I'm looking at next month. Okay, this is what I need to do next month, so that you can make lesson plans that, follow that sort of map. Now, it will change if you miss 4 weeks of school with the same group of students because there's a snow day every single Thursday. If you have something come up, there's different reasons why it might get off. If you sort of abandon your curriculum map for a month because they have a performance coming up at a certain grade level, put those things in there if that's kind of similar every single year. And as you're a new teacher, it will change, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. Like, don't kind of just, hey, I'm going to see what happens. Still write out your map. And then as you go through your year, you can alter it, change it up, and make sure that it kind of fits with how your year went. Now, things like snow days or days for, inclement weather, like if you're in the southeast, if you're getting hurricanes, something like that, those sorts of things are going to vary year to year. So don't necessarily plot all of those in, but plot in the things that happen in your school community that alter the curriculum map. And then when you're writing your lesson plans, you kind of have that to follow. And it'll make your life a lot easier, because you won't kind of be thinking like, well, what do I need to do next week? What do I need to do the week after? Like, where should I go next? What should I do? Because you've plotted out sort of like the big picture concepts. Other things you might that you might hear about now that there are a little more like music ed specific, is a concept list, or a concept plan. And this one, I didn't hear about this for a few years into my teaching. And when I first heard about it, I was like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant. So what a concept plan is say you take a topic. So, okay, we're in second grade, so I'm going to stay with that. So here's my concept plan for DOE. And in that concept plan, at the beginning of it, I write, students need to know these things before I go to DOE. And then I plot out, how are you going to prepare them for that? Orally, kinesthetically, visually. How are you going to present that? And I write out what song I'm going to present and how I might go about that. If I want to really get detailed and scripted, I might write it in there, and use those things. If I have a file I like to use, I'll link that. And then for practice, I'll say, okay, how are you practicing it with writing? How are you practicing it with writing? What memory things are you going to do? What part work things do you want them to do with this? Is there a specific play along online you want to bring up? Is there a composing activity you love? And I list all of those things, and you can have more than one in each, sort of area if you're really getting, sort of detailed in there. And if you like to practice more than one reading activity, label them, which one comes first or something like that. And then I'll put in materials that I need for this unit. So because some people refer to it that way. I don't really, but I just did apparently. So I'll put in materials, like, is there a specific puppet I use every single year for Mouse Mousey? Is there a play along? Is there a book that I like to read with a certain concept? All of those things that like I need to carry out my concept plan. Are there rhythm manipulatives that I need to bring down? Is there a game I play that I need to make sure is copied and, put into little envelopes? Like if you're playing post office, but then I need a class set. That's not something that you can just go quick and like copy right before class. So make sure you have all of your materials listed in there. And then the last thing in there is a song list. And sometimes you'll see this separately, and sometimes you'll see this kind of listed separately. A song list is basically every song that that you use to teach that concept. So I'm not going to include every single song in my folk song database that has DOE in it, but I am going to include every single song where DOE is the target concept. And that's really just a nice way to say, hey, I'm really sick of singing Mouse Mousey, what can I use to replace it? Or just change it up if you are revisiting things, if you're just wanting to change out the sequence, however you're doing things. That's really an easy way to do it, and then you have it. This is also a great way to organize things like conference materials. If you come back from a conference and you're like, hey, I learned this great new song for DOE, and you will not do it unless you've written it down. Put it in your concept plan, like when you get it from a conference. And then lesson plans. Day-to-day lesson plans are your nitty gritty. What are you doing? What order are you doing them? Moving between like really high focus activities versus sort of lesser, easier activities like folk dances or movement games, things that are not so high concentration, and following a lesson flow of, high, low concentration. Opening activities, closing activities, those are sort of your like nitty gritty, like how you put a lesson together. The last document I want to talk about is the folk song database. And this one is various different ways of writing this out. I like Google Sheets. We know this. So for me, I have, the song, the resource or where it's located, like if it's in, my folk song collection from my levels, if it's on, a certain website that I'll just go look it up, if I have it as a file in my computer, if it's in conference materials, wherever it's located, if it's a certain book, where it is, I'll list, the grades that I'm working with, and then I might just put X in a column for K and for 1 because I can use it with both of those grades. I'll list the target concepts. I'll list all of the concepts that are actually in the song. So like if the target concept is ticka ticka, but it's got ta, ti, ti, ta, rest in it, I'll also have those marked. Same for solfege. If there's a game, if there's a material I like to use with it, if there was a recording of it I like to play, time signature, any of those things that you need to know about the song. And this is a really big part of, doing folk song collection if you take Kodai levels. Although I advocate for using a database no matter what, if you have or not, because it's really an easy way for you to like at a glance kind of look at things and keep yourself organized. So that's the last like curriculum planning document that I'm going to talk about today. And there's a bunch of them that's a bunch of documents, right? That's a bunch of documents. And it takes a while to get everything where you feel organized. I actually don't always feel organized, and I'm actually in the process of redoing my folk song database to make things more usable for me, like how I use them. So I think that that's something that you need to keep in mind, is that these are dynamic documents. They are not just build it once and then use it for the rest of your career. However, they are really, even though they're dynamic, the main structure is going to stay very similar from year to year to year. And that's what's important, is that if you build them, then you'll have it for the rest of your life. So I hope this has helped clarify about the different kinds of curriculum planning documents that you might run across in the music ed field. If you have any questions, leave a comment and I will get back to it, or kind of link you to places that might help explain things a little bit more. Or you can always shoot me an email. Thank you so much for watching. As always, if you like, share, subscribe if this was helpful for you, and I will see you next time.